sometimes I feel like medical doctors are just a hustle.
Oh, no,
Like,
totally.
Okay. Oh, here's an example. And this fits in with the whole theme of everything we're talking about. I had mono back when I first got married to Christina. And it was really weird because it came on slowly over time. So I didn't know I was sick. But like we would be out playing basketball and like I would get winded on just driving to the net. Like I would drive to the net after I was done. I'd be like gasping for air, kind of like doubled over, trying to catch my breath. And then like after playing for a little bit, I had like this sharp pain in my side. And like I had tons of physical symptoms. And like when I was at work, I would have all kinds of weird pains. And the pain in my side was pretty consistent. That was one of the main ones. And so I went to the doctor because I was convinced something was wrong. And there were some other reasons too, which are a little personal to go into. But like I said, we were just married and like I was sick and like just had no energy ever and just felt terrible. So I went to the doctor and we were discussing a lot of that stuff. And after I get done telling him everything I'm going through and what I think is wrong with me, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you an allergy medication and a cough medication. I'm going to have you take these for a few days, see how you feel. And if it doesn't help, I think you should come back and talk to me about whether or not you're depressed. And I'm like, wait, what? It's like, did you listen to anything that I just said?
He gave you an antidepressant.
He wanted to. He wanted to prescribe me an antidepressant. First of all, he prescribed me 2 different drugs. Sure, he gets some kind of money from the pharmaceutical companies.
Some little pushback.
And then also he wanted to talk to me about my depression, which he must have been inventing some symptoms that he thought that I was having that would have indicated depression, because everything I was telling him was like physical symptoms. Like I told him nothing about my motivation levels or what I felt like or like mentally how I was. I was talking about like physical pain in my side and like, you know, cough that persists for weeks and all kinds of stuff that I'm like, how did you get depression from that? So I'm like just confused. Like there has to be a financial incentive for him to think that, right? Because I don't know, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I'm just confused why he would even suggest that at that point. Well, so I started taking the medication he gave me and I was like, this is not helping at all. Mm-mm. And a few days later, also I was having a sore throat. I told him my throat was sore. It's been sore for weeks. A few days later, like I had been Googling symptoms because I'm sitting here like trying to figure this the fuck out. Because I'm like, I don't understand why he thinks this is going to help. And, you know, I don't understand why he doesn't just know what I have. So I'm like Googling my symptoms, just like reading shit. And I came across something that said like, if you have white spots on the back of your throat, you could have strep throat. So I'm like, okay. So I look in the mirror and sure enough, like white spots, like all over the back of my throat. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I called him back and I'm like, hey, look, I
just did your job.
Yeah.
And
I was like, hey,
just want to let you know that my overnight medical degree.
Yeah. WebMD just said that I have strep throat. So I'm like calling him up. I'm like, hey, yeah, there's white spots on the back of my throat. Like that's a symptom of strep throat. Could it possibly be that? So they're like, all right, we're going to talk to the doctor and call you back. So they talk to him. They call me back and they're like, he thinks you have mono. He says you should come back in and get a blood test so that we can see for sure. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Okay.
It's like the only symptom that changed was the white spots on the back of my throat. Everything else has been the same. And now he thinks I have mono. I'm like,
imagine this. You're driving down the freeway and the back left side of your car is just dragging. There's just a lot of bumps, a lot of resistance. And you're driving and you're like, damn, something's wrong. So you take it to a mechanic and he looks around and he's like, I think you need an oil change. And then you're like, fuck, how's an oil change going to change this?
Yeah.
So then you go driving back down the road, limping along in your rough riding, low riding car, you know? get home and you're like, fuck, I need to figure out why it's doing. You get on Google, you look it up, and they're like, oh, maybe you should check your tires. You go and look, you got a flat tire, and you call the doctor. Hey, this tire doesn't look like the rest of the tires. Is there a problem? He's like, yeah, I think you might need to come back in. We need to test to see if you have a flat tire. Like, fuck you.
Yeah, you would never go back to that mechanic. And yet, like, I feel like that's a lot of medical doctors. Not all of them, because I think there's some really good ones out there. And I've actually been to a couple of good ones. But
Yeah.
my experience in general with medicine has not been great.
That's a hustle too.
Yeah,
That's a straight hustle.
it's a hustle.